The rich are richer still because Denzel Burke has committed to the 2021 class of The Ohio State University. We got to talk about it after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You got to help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related. Sports related, we have a good time. Today, we need to talk about four-star athlete out of Saguaro, Denzel Burke, who has announced his commitment to the 2021 class of Ohio State University. Ryan Day made a trip out to Saguaro in January where he offered Denzel Burke, and Corey Dennis and Kerry Combs picked up from there. And come late May, adding to the heap. So this ought to put Ohio State over 300 points before we get to June 1st in the team rankings and further extends their lead. Call it 18 commitments. You can call it 19 if you want to include the punter who's not ranked. Fine. Everybody needs a punter. I'm not necessarily interested in punters and what they're doing. I am interested in filling out this Ohio State class with some really great blue chip talent. I mean, Jansen Dunn is really great. He's in line to get a 4th star if he hasn't already. Then you're talking about guys like Jalen Davies, who they've been on. And then you're getting into perhaps a really great offensive class that they've already got their hands around in Kyle McCord, Marvin Harrison Jr., Evan Pryor, Travion Henderson. I mean, we keep going down the list here. And at 6 foot, 189 pounds, you could see that Burke is a very big kid. And coming out of Saguaro is also a very good look. Many of you will remember that Jacoby Covington, top cornerback in last year's class, comes out to Washington. You'll remember that Keely Ringo signed with Georgia. We're still waiting on Damian Sellers. I'm gonna really be interested to see what happens there because he fell out of the top 350 rankings of the 247 class. But in Burke, you got a kid that was the number 7 athlete in the country, number 4 prospect in the state of Arizona. He had offers from not just Ohio State, but USC, Washington, Oregon, Arizona State, Arizona, LSU, Texas, Auburn, UCLA, Nebraska, and really continues to grow this defensive class that I think is going to be great with Ja'Kalen Johnson also in there, Tumese Adelie, who many of you know that I think the world of. I mentioned Jansen Dunn. Jalen Ballard is going to be a really great dude for him to go up against. It's a fantastic class, and I expected it to kind of tail off for Ohio State for a little bit because, like everybody else, they're getting on the fuller side, like they're 2/3 full now, as opposed to like Oklahoma, who's got 7 commits and is expecting to pick up a ton more in the summer, but we're still waiting on that to happen. I didn't know that the trigger would be pulled before June 1, though, but I can understand how perhaps now you want to rent a room, right? You want to get a reservation at the school for which you have the best opportunity to win a national championship, to get developed into a top talent, because nobody knows how to overdevelop defensive backs like Ohio State overdevelops defensive backs. Like Denzel Ward was a 3-star prospect when he ended up at Ohio State, comes out as number 4 overall pick in the 2018 draft. And we know about Gary and Conley. We know about Marshawn Lattimore. We know about guys like, we could even go to Jeff Okudah. We could go to Damon Arnett. We can keep looking at dudes all the way down the line, Eli Apple, and see what they've been able to do. But this is a good get. This is a guy that, Oregon I thought was going to have an opportunity with, but apparently I was wrong there because I'm looking at Oregon's defense, and Oregon's defense is getting to be pretty stout. And they also had a pretty good 2020 class, and Kayvon Thibodeau is a star. Just there's not a whole lot of people that will understand it or know it right now. So getting another dude into this boat also further extends this lead, but gets you closer to perhaps getting to that magical number of 324.63, which would give Ohio State the greatest recruiting class of all time, with JT Tuimoloau and Emeka Egbuka both considered Ohio State leans. Those are 2 5-star prospects and top 10 247 Sports composite kids, along with a few others that they are recruiting really hard, like, say, J.C. Latham. So you get all 3 of those dudes into the boat, you got a real shot at this thing. And you would be able to get there with about 3 fewer commits than Florida had when it put together that historic class, which really only gave us Trey Burton, right? Like, that's about it. Like, there's not really a memorable name from that class that went on to do something in the NFL perhaps. And that's what the composite about. That's what the rankings are about. It's about trying to project these kids forward into their NFL years and where we think that they're going to get drafted as opposed to, what they're going to do in college. The comp I found really interesting here, Blair Anglou saying DeMarcus Robinson, the build with the long arms and the projectable frame should take on good weight over the next few years. Fluid athlete that could thrive on offense or defense. Very good ball skills. Dynamic receiver with quickness to explode out of his break. Sets up defenders well to gain separation after the catch. Speed makes him a threat to score from anywhere. Decent in coverage as a defender with fluidity to stick to wideouts. Must improve physicality and durability. Potential multi-year starter and NFL Draft Day 3 selection out of Phoenix, Arizona. So a really good pickup for the Ohio State Buckeyes, who continue to do nothing but just destroy this recruiting thing. And when you look at the top recruiters in the rankings, you'll see Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, Larry Johnson Sr., Kerry Combs, and Al Washington, which is like half of the Ohio State Buckeyes coaching staff. And at a time when everybody seems to be having a hard time recruiting through this pandemic, Ohio State has been able to make the Zoom calls really work, the virtual visits really work in a way that, I thought everybody should be able to make these things work because, the issue here is that you don't get to show your campus. You don't get to show your wares. You don't get to show why this is the spot, right? Like if you go down to Oklahoma, you're going to go buy Ray's Barbecue, right? You're going to get told about Van's Pig Stand, which I ain't really that big on, but people are. You're going to be told about Tarmar's. You're going to get that. You're going to get to see Memorial Stadium, the Palace on the Prairie. You're going to get to take in the Barry Switzer Strength and Conditioning Facility. You're going to get to take in Headington Hall, which is the dynamic dorm that most of the freshmen and sophomores on the football team stay with. These are all really important when you're trying to stress to a kiddo and his family why this is the place for you. And yet Ohio State has not let that be an impediment to them having ridiculous, great success here with this thing, man. I thought it was going to be really difficult for a place like Ohio State to compete with anybody else because, quite honestly, you don't really have all those bells and whistles to show at the shoe like you want. I'm not going to act like I'm familiar with what's going on at the shoe and outside of the shoe. I'm sure that there's a bunch of people in the comments that are going to get to that. But I did thought that it would level the playing field because Miami of Ohio has been able to clean up in recruiting. New Mexico has been able to clean up in recruiting. They're not going to finish in the top 25, but that's not the point, right? The point is, now they feel like they have an opportunity to be on par with the big boys. And in being on par with the big boys, the advantage that Tuscaloosa might have of being able to show Bryant Denny and this fantastic football facility that they have is null and void. Now we get to play football. That's going to be interesting. I think we're going to play football. I think we're going to play football with limited fans and stands. But because everybody's having to go through this thing with the PPE and with testing and with, basically making sure that you are trying to turn your place into a lab, you might not be able to host visitors in the way that you've been able to host visitors in the past. And if that's the case, you're going to have to be really, very selective about who you invite on officials. And not everybody's going to get an official that would have got an official in a normal year. So a lot of these commitments are likely to stick by default just because kids aren't going to have an opportunity. Travion Henderson committed to Ohio State without taking a visit. And he was supposed to take a visit to Oklahoma for the spring game for an official. That stuff matters, right? I can't underscore that enough. So being able to pick up a kid from Phoenix, Arizona in late May, that's a 4-star athlete that basically did turn down every Pac-12 program around him to go to Columbus is not a small thing. It's not like CJ Stroud, who had to basically work his way up through the opening circuit to get that offer from Ohio State. It's very different. So kudos to the coaching staff, but you got to keep recruiting them, and I can't wait to see how this thing ends. All right, that's it for me. Doses.